Session, Gil is going to speak to us on the subject of So You Want to Be a Manager. Can we just put our hands together to welcome him this afternoon? Thank you.
It's been 1 month since I became a team lead, and I'm in a noisy, dark pub, in a meetup for tech leads. So I'm talking to this tech lead, this guy that just became a tech lead, and he was telling me how he likes being a tech lead now, that he can have the power to change the code as he wants to. And I asked him, like, okay, so you like to be a tech lead. How is working with people? And he said, I hate people. So that's why I wanted to do this talk, to help people understand if you want to be a manager. Do you really want to be a manager? So a bit about me. I'm Gil. I'm the backend lead at Unmade, where we're a fashion software company where we help fashion companies make clothes that are on demand and customizable, so you can look good while saving the planet. So a little bit about me, again. I'm a developer for 8 to 9 years, depending on how you count. I've been a manager for 2 now, so I see myself as a junior manager yet. So take this with a grain of salt. This will be about my experience as a manager. People are different, we are all different, and companies are all different as well. So what worked with me, what I find fun, may not be what you find fun. So yeah, your mileage may vary. Who is this talk for? So hands up if you're thinking about becoming a manager in the short term. Okay, so for the 10 of you, this talk is for you. The other ones, I guess, either sleeping or waiting for the next talk. I don't mind, I love cheerleaders. So just our curiosity, who here is a manager already? Oh, wow, okay, great. Yeah, this talk may not be for you, but maybe it is. Maybe it will help you figure out if you are in the right place. We'll see. Oh, right, so I'll be talking about differences between an individual contributor or developer or software engineer. I may say those terms, just consider them people who are not managers versus managers. So first of all, code. And sorry about the GIFs, they move a lot and they just keep on moving. So just try to focus on me. Code-wise, so if you are a developer, you will be coding a lot, right? That's maybe 90% of your work. You'll be thinking about code, you'll be writing code to make features. Yeah, code is basically your life, which is why some people call themselves coders. As a manager, as you can imagine, by looking at your manager or other managers, there's not a lot of code. There's less code. So from my experience, when I became a team lead, I was just like a soft manager. So I was doing maybe 80 to 20%, so 80% coding and 20% managing. I was just doing one-to-ones, accepting holidays, very soft. But now that I'm a back-end lead, I'm much stronger on the management stuff. So I deal with promotions, salaries, recruiting people, making offers. So it's a bit more time-consuming than just being a team lead. So my time spent in coding is maybe 20 to 80%, 20% coding. And you can see the tool over there, because one of the things that I do as a backend lead is trying to write tools that improve the lives of the people in my team, which is something that I love. Schedule. As you can imagine, a manager will have more meetings than an individual contributor. And you don't need me to say this, right? So for example, just a mock example, you can't read because it's very small, but it's basically, as an individual contributor, you'll have the stand-ups for your sprint. If you're doing Scrum, you'll have the one-to-one with your manager. And retrospective, planning, that's it, right? maybe, depending on your company culture. As a manager, you'll have a bit more. You'll have to do one-to-ones with all of your reports. Well, at least I do. I think it's super important. And actually, like, I realized that I don't have as much meetings as I actually do because I've removed myself from the delivery, which, again, may be very different from manager to manager. I'm not in charge of delivery, so I can work on things that are improving all of the projects, hopefully. So, summarizing, if you are a manager, you will have more meetings than an individual contributor. Focus. You can see the monk there. That's, that's hopefully an individual contributor. You will be focusing on the feature you're building, on the team you are working with, on the project you are working with. So it will be much more narrow focus. And I said hopefully because, again, I know that some of you will say, I have too many meetings, I can't focus on my thing, and that's fine. I'm not your manager, so I can't help you. But if I am, please talk to me about that. And as a manager, you can see that gentleman there. And this may, again, vary from manager to manager. I think of myself as an unblocker, a multiplier. I act as a multiplier, so I have to always be available. And this means that I'm trying to think about how to improve my team, and then someone is going to come to me and say, hey, Gil, do you have 5 minutes? And I say, okay, yeah, I do. I always do. And yeah, so that means that as a manager, your focus will be more scattered, at least if you think the same way that I do. You can always be a manager that says, no, I'm focusing. And then, yeah, please talk to me because I'd love to know some tricks. Yeah, so feedback loop. This is something that I struggle a bit. As you can see on your left, that little human being is getting a very short feedback loop. And if you practice TDD, and if you practice proper TDD, you will have a feedback loop as an individual contributor where you write a feature, the test is red, you write more code, still red, you write more code, it's green. Refactor, still green, amazing. So you get that hormone that I forgot the name of, you get from sugar and drugs, with dopamine, or endorphins, yeah, both. And or both, I don't know which one I get, I don't measure it myself. So you're getting a short feedback loop where you're always happy, boom, 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 feature, feature, feature. As a manager, it's not like that. So, I mean, depends, right? So because you're dealing with people, you are trying to help someone to do something. And because there are people, because the environment changes, everything changes, there's so many variables, you may not know if the thing that you're trying to do works, or even if it worked because of you. It's a very weird feedback loop. Sometimes it takes ages, sometimes it doesn't happen, and you don't know if it's your fault. It's weird. So keep this in mind. But I must say that when my team is doing great work, that feeling beats everything else. It's much better than the task passing. Trust me. People. So we got the controversial aspect of this, and this may be my most prescriptive slide. Because, so as a individual contributor, and I'm not saying that all individual contributors hate people, but it's just you'll have a shorter network to work with. You'll have your coworkers, your team members, your product manager, product owner, and your manager, right? As a manager, you have all of your directs plus some other people from the company. So you'll have to handle a lot more of the people. And yeah, so a lot more people. And my prescription is that you need to like to work with people a bit, because that's what being a manager is, the man from manager. I think so. I don't know. Conflict. As an individual contributor, a developer, you will find your conflicts are mainly mainly merge conflicts, right? Or SVN conflicts, maybe, if you don't use Git. And actually, I mean, you may have some conflict with other coworkers as well, but that's it. There will be your own conflicts, unless you like to office gossip and stuff like that. You may, you may get other conflicts, but yeah. As a manager, of course, as you know, you'll be acting as a multiplier, you'll be helping other people deal with conflicts, so more conflicts. Coaching and teaching. This one, yeah, this is from the pair programming video. I don't know if you know about it. So this is roughly the same. I think as a developer, even if you're a junior, you'll have to coach, teach other developers as they get into your team, because you know more about them, you know more about your application than they do. So I think every software engineer will do some form of coaching and teaching, and actually as a senior engineer, I think you'll be doing more of that. As a manager, you are expected, as part of your job, to do this. So yeah, as a manager, expect to know about coaching and teaching. And coaching, for those who don't know, I'm talking about Socratic method. So you ask as many questions as you need for the other person to figure out the answer. So you don't need to know more about that than they do. You only need to know how to ask questions. Right, so we got to the end of the differences. There's probably plenty more, but I couldn't remember them. So I got some questions for you. These questions will help all 10 people who put your arm up to know if you want to become a manager or not. Or maybe the managers in the room may think if the questions match what they, what do they match? They match what they ask themselves and the answers. I promise I didn't drink before this talk. So first question, is this what you want for yourself? And it's a weird question. So remember the bullshit interview question of where do you see yourself in 5 years? Think of that for yourself. And if it does involve people, then becoming a manager will be part of the path of the stepping stones of your career life, right? So then it does make sense for you to become a manager. If you don't see yourself, if you see yourself in a dark cabin in the middle of the woods writing code just for you, which actually I love that. Maybe one day I'll do that. Maybe you shouldn't be a manager. Yeah, so just think about your career and if it matches. If you're going into management, will you be supported? And this also works for junior engineers. If you're going to a new company and you're going to be the only engineer and there's nobody senior to you where you can't learn from, I would say don't go there. It's probably a bad company to go to. And the same for management, right? When I became a manager, I didn't have experience with managing, so I had to have support. So my company paid for me to go on a course. So as long as you have a manager that you think it's good and they will support you and they will help you become a better manager, or if the company is going to pay you for training and they care about you individually becoming a better manager, go to a company that does that. Last but not least, so why do you want to be a manager? This, I think, is the important question that you have to ask yourself. Why do you want to become a manager? And you can see from the differences that I talked about that I think that there should be people in the answer to this question. So I'll give you my answer to this question, which is I want to become a manager because I want to make impactful decisions that affect more people, and I want to help people become better professionals, better developers. That is my answer. Yours may be different, but I think if your answer is I want more money, I don't care about people, I want more code, then yeah, there's other jobs for you. And yeah, I said that I was trying not to be prescriptive, but I think I was just now. Take this with a grain of salt again. Yeah, but I do think you need to involve people. So actually, just another poll, a little poll before we go into questions. Who here loves coding? All right, I was expecting this. I also love coding, and that's why I became a developer. Now, who here thinks that you need to love code to be a developer? All right, so I will disagree with you, and I'll explain why. I think that, for example, it really helped me to love code because that meant that I was spending more hours coding and becoming a better developer. So I think it really helped me. I do think that someone who doesn't love code as much as I do, but are hard workers, harder working people, or more disciplined than I am, they can spend the same time as I have programming, and then they can also become as good a developer as I am. I don't think this works the same for a manager. If you don't like people, I don't think you can force yourself to be a manager, or like talking to people, because, and I've seen people who don't like people or are not, or like socially awkward, trying to get strategies to talk to people better. It doesn't work. People notice that you're a robot, and which is why I believe that you need to like people to be a manager. And this, oh no, resources. So The Manager's Path, this was the first book that I read when I became a team lead. It's by Camille Fournier, and Fournier. This book is amazing. It has like very short stories, and it goes from individual contributor until like super CTO, like someone who doesn't code, but it just manages a lot of people. And I would recommend everyone to read that book, even if you're not planning on becoming a manager. You can understand how your manager works. And you can just stop reading the book until you get to responsibilities that you're not even aware of. The second book, when I got to the second job, my current job, my CTO recommended me to read this book. It's by Michael Lopp, who, for those who don't know, he's the one who writes the blog called Rands in Repose. I'm guessing lots of you know. If you don't, you should check it. It's a very fun book. It's lots of jokes, and it's a very handbook for someone who's trying to become a manager, specifically for tech. And we reached the end. Thank you so much, and I want questions to be able to help you.
Thank you. Okay, questions. Put your hand up if you've got a question.
What is the recommendation that you give to someone that is forced into a management position by default?
Great question. I think that applies to a lot of people. It's a hard question to answer, right? I think in our sector, we are lucky enough that there's more jobs than us. So it's easier for me to say, go find another company that has, and I've heard of companies that have different paths that are parallel to manager. So you can be a very super senior engineer whilst not being a manager, and you can earn it the same as a manager as well. So those companies don't force you to become a manager. I would say look for those if you're not looking to be a manager.
It's okay if you don't know the answer, but what's the difference between a team lead and tech lead, in your opinion? Or like, there's this two different concepts, right?
It's not that I don't know the answer, it's that it varies from company to company. I can give my definition, but then you go to a different company and they think that the tech lead is a gardener, so... You want my definition? I'll say that a tech lead is someone who's more involved in delivery, someone who's more involved with the code architecture, maybe more like an architecture type of person. And the other one was team lead. I think that would be, team lead would be someone who does leadership, so helps other people do work in a better way.
What's your biggest tip for balancing the 80-20 split or 50-50 split?
Yes, I can give you my tips, but I'm still figuring it out. As I said, like building tools, I think it's a great way for me to keep my technical chops up, whilst not being, what do I want to say? Whilst not being a blocker for my team. So I don't want to pick things that are too gnarly for me, because that means that I'll be blocking the whole team. So I think building tools for the team is the best way for me to keep my chops up. And also, I forgot to mention, in the calendar, I have like a little calendar, a few calendar, events, for me to learn how to write code better so that I can help my members of my team.
Hi. How do you handle the fact that in some companies, basically you have no control over the features, you have no control over the deadlines, you don't have control over the team, because you don't have the possibility to choose this. Teams change every sprint, they reallocate people away from you, so the time you spent training them goes out of the window, things like that.
I think that would depend on who makes those decisions. And I guess if you are a manager or someone with influence, I would say that you can talk to those people and try to understand the reasons for that and to help drive decisions in a way that you think it's better by talking to them. I don't know. I mean, I would have to talk to you. Let's talk about that later. And
Okay, we can take that outside. There's lots of people getting my attention for questions, so we're going to be quick questions, quick answers, hopefully, but Gil will be available at the end. I've got 3 people are in the case I'm going to go to.
Looks like the subject is interesting.
It is.
Did you apply it or did you run it to be a manager, or have you been invited or pushed, and how have you dealt with the situation?
no, so I'm actually in a very good position where I actually wanted to become a team lead, and when there was a position available, I immediately went after it. I was not pushed, and I actually went for it.
Thanks, Gil, for the talk. You mentioned at one point you are always available for the people you manage, and I suppose you take care of them not burning out. Who takes care of you as a manager not burning out?
I want to know the answer to that question as well. No, I tend to go to my manager and I use him as my support a lot. Thanks for him to being a good manager and supporting me a lot. So I do use him as a bit of my therapy.
Apologies, I was slightly distracted there.
That's why we have hierarchies, right? So.
As developers, we have lots of good resources, it's like Stack Overflow, mailing list, AIC channels. If you're stuck, it's easy to get help. Like, you're sometimes probably going to get stuck as a manager. What sort of resources or groups, or have you found similar support?
Yes, I think so. I think I've mentioned to someone that there's no Stack Overflow for managers, which is unfortunate. And I mean, I've tried to both use my natural instincts to solve problems. Also, like the books that I mentioned really helped me on that. And my manager has been great at helping me solve those issues. But sometimes it's really tough.
Gil, thank you for the talk. You said a person to be a manager needs to like people and also needs to be socially apt. But there are some people that are not very socially apt and like people, and also very apt people who doesn't like people. Both those options, which ones you would think would be good managers?
So a member of my team have told me, she's here, have told me that to be a great manager, you have to be a good person, and to, what was the other thing? No, it wasn't socially apt. So I think I would say I would rather have someone, if I were to pick one of those, right? I would say that someone who likes people and is not socially apt, because people can feel that someone has like a good heart, I'll say. If they really care, yes, that's it. They need to care. So as long as you care, I think you can be awkward.
Can I just ask, is the speaker for the next session in the room? You are in the room. Okay, so this will be the last question. Thank you.
Hi, Gil. Very good talk. So I think mostly we've talked about the happy path of being a manager. What about the unhappy path, where you have the sponsors who want stuff and they are really shouting in your face? Have you advice for that situation?
That's a really hard to answer, and I honestly, I'll say that I don't know the answer because that hasn't happened to me. I do know of people who have had managers like that, and I would just love to avoid that. But like for advice for someone stuck in that situation, I would say again, like look for a different company where they can support you, not being a manager and being actually someone influential. I know it's hard. We just have to be. We are fortunate enough to be in a market that's always looking for people. So, yeah. Sorry? What?
When you get to a certain age, that's not so much of an option.
I can't answer that.
Okay, we're going to end the talk. So I just want to say thank you very much, Gil, for your talk and receiving the questions so well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.